Hi, this is Erin Johnson with OutstandingOhio.com. I'm here today with a Tool Time Tuesday tip to make your life easier. Today I'm going to show you a formula in Excel called Vlookup. It stands for vertical lookup, and it is a way to match two sets of data to each other when they have one common piece of information. So you might have one set of data, for example, with names and addresses, and then maybe you have a different spreadsheet or a different tab that has names and phone numbers. And you're not sure how to get the phone numbers over into the same data set as the addresses. And a lot of people might just start, maybe they'll do a sort and they'll copy and paste in and try to manually match them up and hope they match, and sometimes they miss, or it maybe takes a long time to eyeball them and make sure they got them. This is a much more easy and automated way to do something like that. So I am going to get right to it and show you how it's done. So the very first thing you need, it is easiest, I do find it easiest to get both of your data sets into the same workbook. So having two different tabs, I have one tab here for the phone number, one for the address. That would be first. Secondly, you need to know that the data that you're matching up in the two data sets, there's one piece of data that's the same. So in this case, it's the name. However, there's a little bit of a complication that you'll see. It's not just one field, it's two. There's a first name and there's a last name. And in some cases, there's more than one. Actually, in many cases, there's more than one of the same last name with a different first name. This first one, for example, has 3 Griffiths. So if you do the VLOOKUP just on the last name, if there's more than one of the same thing in that column, it's going to get confused and it's not going to know what to do, or it's only going to bring back one phone number for all 3 of these and not 3 different ones. So the first thing we need to do is merge these 2 cells together so that we have one field for the first and the last name combined. So I'm going to right click here and insert a column. And I'm going to write a formula that's going to combine the first name and the last name. I'm going to start with equals. I'm going to click on the cell that has the first name, so D2. I'm going to put the ampersand sign, and I'm going to do a quotation and a space, and then another quotation. That's going to put a space in between the first name, and then I'm going to put another ampersand sign and click on the last name cell. So I've got D2 and space and E2. So it's basically going to combine those 3 things, D2, the space, and then E2. And then I'm going to hit enter, and there you have it, Dorothy space Griffith. Now I'm going to go in the bottom. If you see this little plus sign, you can double left click on that and it'll copy it all the way down to the bottom. You can do control arrow down to go all the way down to the bottom and make sure that it copied all the way down, which it did. So we're in good shape. So I'm going to just title this column name, and then I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. So right click, insert a column, whoops, and insert 4 columns. Insert a column. We're going to do equals, click on D2, ampersand, quotation, space, quotation, and E2. Hit enter, looks good, and then I'm going to copy it down, control arrow down to the bottom, looks good, control arrow back up, and then I'm going to call this name. Okay, so now I have name and phone number, and then I have name and then the address. And I want to get them all into one file. So it's easier to just move the one piece of information. So I'm going to focus on moving this. So in the data set where you're trying to pull the information from to get it into another place, you want to name a data range. The range should consist of, in the very first column, the leftmost column of the range needs to be the data that you are trying to match up. So in this case, it's the name, okay? So I'm going to highlight that one first, and then you would go to the right, as many fields as you want. In this case, we only need the phone number, and so I'm only going to highlight these 2. And I'll show you later what happens when you have more than one column of information that you may be wanting to VLOOKUP. So I have the first column is the name, which is the column I want to match on, and then the second column is the phone number, which is the piece of information I want to transfer over to the other tab. So I'm going to name the range. If you go up here, see this little thing here is called the name box. I can click on there, and I'm going to name it something. You can't use any spaces. I don't think you can use special characters. I tend to just use letters and make it something easy to remember. So in this case, I'm just going to write phone, and I'm going to hit enter. So now I can click away. It doesn't say phone up there. It says X7. But when I click in here and see, okay, what's in the range of phone, it's going to show me these two columns. It's going to go all the way down. Okay, so this is my reference range. It's going to, so I can write my formula and tell it where I want it to look. Now I'm ready to write my formula. So I'm going to go over here, going to add phone as a column here, and then I'm going to start writing the formula. So it's equals Vlookup, parenthesis, and there's 4 pieces of information you have to enter here. The first piece is what you want to look up. So in this case, we want to look up the name. So I'm going to click on the cell that has the name. So I want to look up whatever they find in F2, which is Dorothy Griffith. Then, comma. The second piece of information is where you want it to look. You want it to look in the range that you just named. So we called that phone. So I want to say, look up Dorothy Griffith in phone. And when you find her, I want you to bring back the second column of information that you find. And then I want it to be an exact match. So you'll see this last piece of information after the comma is either true for an approximate match or false for an exact match. And I almost always want it to be an exact match. I don't know that I've ever used approximate match. End parentheses, and then hit enter. There you have it, the phone number. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit more about that number 2. Okay, so again, we were VLOOKUPing. We're saying go find F2, Dorothy Griffith, go find it in phone, and when you find it, bring back number 2, column number 2, and find an exact match. Okay, so column number 2 was the way that it counts it. So within your range, which we called phone, this is 1, what it's looking for, and then this is 2. If you wanted any more columns, it would be 3, 4, 5, etc. So that's that. I'm going to go ahead and double click that and copy that down. So now I have phone numbers and addresses all in one file. Okay, now to do something a little bit more complicated, we're going to pull the address back into the phone one. Now, typically you wouldn't do this because you don't need, both, but just to show you how to do it when it's a little bit more complicated. So let's do here, address, city, state, zip. Okay, so now I need to name the range over here. Again, I want it to start with name. Do you want always the first column of your range to be the piece of information you're looking up on, even if it's not the first column in your spreadsheet? So A is actually hidden, but you don't want to start over here. You don't want to start anywhere else. You need it to start where the matching piece of information is, which in this case is name. Okay, so we want to match on name, and then I'm going to highlight all the way to the right. And then I'm going to click up here to name the range, and in this case I'm going to call it address and click enter. Okay, now I'm going to go back over here and write my formula. I'm going to go to equals Vlookup. Whoops. I want to look up. What do you want to look up? I want to look up the name. The name's in F2. I'm going to click on that. Where do I want it to look? I want it to look in the range called address. I'm just going to type address. What do I want it to bring back? I want it to bring back the second column of information that has the address, and I want it to be an exact match, so I'm going to type false. Okay, so there I have the address. Now, sometimes the piece of information that you want may be like all the way over here, and then you're counting 1, 2, is that 45 or 46? It can get kind of complicated. So what I like to do is just add a row at the very top and start numbering with that first column from my range, which was name, and then just number over. Once you do 2 or 3 numbers, you can highlight them and then grab this little thing at the bottom and just pull it over. What's nice about that is you don't have to type all the numbers, for one thing, but secondly, if you do have any hidden columns, like you'll see I do here, it counts those as it should, and it will skip like from 5 in J all the way to 17 in V, because 6 and 16 are hidden. And you might not, if you were manually doing this, you might say, oh, that's 6, and just keep going. So this catches that one's actually 17. Okay, so the pieces of information we want now to bring back address, city, state, and zip are 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pretty easy, right? So you can come over here and type 3 more formulas if you want, or I'm going to show you an alternative way to do it as well. So just to get some practice, so we're going to equals Vlookup, parenthesis, what are we looking up? We're looking up the name. Where are we looking? We're looking in the range we called address. What do we want to bring back? We want to bring back the third column of information once it finds a match, and we want an exact match, so we're going to type false. And then, so on and so forth. So equals Vlookup, we're going to look up the name, we're going to look it up in the address range. We want the fourth column of information and an exact match. Okay, so another way to do this would be to put the numbers up here. So this is 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it could be anything. It could be 172 for, if you have a really big spreadsheet, but whatever number it is that you want to bring back. And then when you write the formula, instead of saying, you're still going to say, what do you want to find? Where do you want to find it? Instead of saying a number, you're going to reference the cell. So find whatever it is that you find in this cell, which happens to be 2. And then you're going to use the $ keys, which help to make things constant so that when you copy this formula, it doesn't keep changing that number. So in this case, you want to, no matter where you copy this formula, you don't want it to always stay at S1, but you do want it to always stay at 1. Okay, so you can keep pressing F4 after you've clicked on that cell until you get it to be what you want. So the first one is that it would keep it constant at S1. The second time I click it, which is what I want, it's going to move S, but it's going to keep it constant at 1. And then, again, I'm going to type false. Okay, so this could be kind of confusing if you're not used to doing that in formulas. So just to kind of show you how this might work, when I copy this, I'm going to Control-C and Control-V into this cell. That changed the S1 to T1, which is what we want it to do, because now it's going to look for number 3 and not number 2 because we're in the different column. But it's bringing me an NA because what also happened is it changed this first reference of F4. Because I moved it over 1, it automatically moved it over 1 to G4, and now it's trying to look up a phone number. We don't want it to do that, so we also need to go back in here and click up here and then do the F4. So we want this to always stay at F, but rotate and move the number 4 when I move it. Okay, so now I'm going to copy this again. And you'll see it kept the F constant. 4 is also constant because I'm still in the 4th row, so it didn't need to move that. And then it changed the T. Now when I copy this formula over here, it's going to keep the F4, so it's still referring to this cell for the name, and then it moved to U1, which is now going to look up 4 for the state. And then one more time, you've still got F4, and now it's changed to V1 because I'm in column V. And it's going to look up number 5, which is a zip, and then I've got everything. So now when I copy this down a row, I highlighted Control-C, I'm going to Control-V, and now it's changed my F4 to F5 because I'm on row 5. So it knows to keep F because of that $, but move to the row that I'm currently in, which is 5. So now I'm looking up Sarah Griffith. Okay, so just be careful on this because if you, for example, and these people all have the same address, so that's kind of confusing, but I'm going to keep moving. So let's say I accidentally had the $, on the 5 as well. When I move this formula down, it's still going to be looking up Sarah Griffith, and it didn't move to Matthew Woods. It still says F5, even though I'm on row 6. So you want to make sure that those $, are in the right place. When in doubt, if this is too complicated for you, just go ahead and write the formulas the classic way. Do the 2, the 3, the 4. You can do a 5. And then just copy them down, and you don't have to worry about those $, or anything else. I'm just giving you a few other little tricks that could make your life easier if you're getting into some more complicated things, okay? So I don't mean to overwhelm you, just trying to share a bunch of stuff at once here. So you can just keep it simple like this, and then when you copy that formula down, it'll move the F3 to F4, which is what you want, and so forth. And then, it'll keep your 2 and your 3 and your 4 and your 5. So those are just some options. And then however you do it, though, you can go ahead and copy it down, and then you'll be good to go. Now, you may want to, at this point, remove these formulas so that you don't have to worry about things changing, or if you want to delete the second tab and just keep the one tab, then you'll want to do a copy paste special formula, paste special values. So you'll take the data that you had here, copy, and then you're going to right click, paste specials, and then just click on values. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the formulas out. So now that when you look in the cell, you'll only see the value, the result of the formula, and you won't see that VLOOKUP formula in there anymore. Okay, so that's VLOOKUP in a nutshell on how you can kind of merge two documents together. Data, as long as there's one constant piece of data that matches. If there is more than one one of the same data in that matching set, so if there's two Dorothy Griffith, for example, I believe it'll typically pull back the first one that it finds. So you do want to make sure, if at all possible, that there's no duplicates in the column that you're matching to, or you may have some issues with that. So just giving you a heads up about that. And trying to think what else. So this can be really helpful for if you have like a set of sales data and you just want to pull in the last month without reformatting everything. You can just add the month in, or if you have like a list of account numbers and sales, and then you have a list of account numbers and account names, and you want to pull the name into the same file that has the sales, or anything like that. Anything where you have one, as long as that one piece of information is constant to do the match on, you can pull data from either one into the other one to make your life easier. So I hope this helps. Threw in a couple extra tricks for you there too. If you have any questions, reach out. I'd love to help you. I've done this a lot. It does get easier the more you do it. Definitely do it a few times. Get into the practice of it, and it will really help you be more efficient with your data management and have less mistakes as well. If you've been doing matches like this manually, you might have been making mistakes, and this is a more automated way to do it. So hope this helps. Hope you enjoy it. Have a great day. Thank you.